Okay, sure, ma'am. Okay. A very good afternoon to everyone. This is Manorma Kuntal. I'm a research scholar, Department of Political Science, Jamia Millia Islamia. I welcome you all for today's book discussion, which has been organized by Indian Research Scholars Association on the Palgrave Handbook of Gender and Citizenship, which has been edited by Professor Birte Siim and Professor Pauline Stoltz. So for today's book discussion, we have our eminent speakers, Professor Debi Chatterjee, who is a former chairperson of Department of International Relations, Jadavpur University, and editor-in-chief of Contemporary Voice of Dalit Danish publications. Our chief guest for today is Professor Pauline Stoltz, who is a political scientist and research advisor, University Administration and Services at Kristianstad University, Sweden. And our guest of honor for today is Professor Birte Siim. She's a Danish political scientist and Professor Emeritus, Aalborg, Denmark. I welcome you all, ma'am. Invaluable resource of gender and citizenship in an increasingly interconnected world. This comprehensive volume delves into the complexities of citizenship from a gender perspective, offering insight shades and inclusion across various cultural contexts. For Indian scholars, this work provides comparative analysis and global perspectives that can enrich their understanding of local gender dynamics. It is an essential reference for anyone committed to advancing gender equality and understanding citizenship beyond traditional frameworks, making it especially significant for those involved in policymaking, advocacy, and academic research. So, with that, because this book discussion has been organized by ISA, so I would like to emphasize a little bit on Indian Research Scholars Association, which plays a crucial role in empowering young scholars across various universities by providing a collaborative platform for academic growth and knowledge exchange. Its primary objective is to support research scholars by fostering a sense of community, promoting interdisciplinary discussions, and facilitating access to resources that enhance research quality. In today's world where knowledge evolves rapidly and societal challenges grow increasingly complex, ISA help young scholars stay connected, adapt to new methodologies, and contribute meaningfully to national and global discourses. Though through networking, workshops, and seminars, ISA encourages innovative thinking and collaboration, which are essential for academic excellence and societal progress. So, with that note, I would like to invite the president of ISA, Mr. Vikash Kumar, for the welcome address. Over to you, Mr. Vikas.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you so much, Manorma ji. My voice is coming.
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay, so first of all, as a president of this association, I have limited time and also I have limited words. So I will not take much time. I will give my brief welcome address. So first of all, I would like to welcome to Professor Devi Chatterjee, madam, eminent and prestigious scholar on the field of the Dalit studies and the political Indian political system. And Madam is also chief editor of the Contemporary Voices of Dalit says publication. And because Professor Devi Chatterjee Madam has accepted our invitation very easily, and she is present here. So you're most welcome, Professor Devi Madam, on behalf of me and on the behalf of the India Research Scholars Association. And the second, my heartfelt congratulations to Professor Birte Siim and Professor Pauline for the wonderful edited volume on the field of the gender studies and gender studies and citizenship. And I hope that this volume will be increase the knowledge in this particular field. So, on the behalf of the Indian Research Scholars Association and on the behalf of me, I would like to welcome Professor Birte Siim and Professor Pauline. So, I would like to welcome the moderator, the excellent moderator of this session, to Manorma Kuntalji, who is my close friend and executive committee member of the Indian Research Scholars Association. I would like to welcome all the executive committee members of the Indian Research Scholars Association who have always taken the very good initiative on the field of the research and various kinds of the discussions. I can see on the screen to Asuni Kumar, to Rima Atish, to Asa Madam and Dr. Hemant Kumar, Ganeshi Lalji, and other scholars who have joined from the various universities and institutions. So, on the behalf of me and on the behalf of the IRSA, I would like to welcome the all participant guests and also the executive committee members. So, I will not take more time because today we have a very eminent speakers. So, just I would like to request again to Manorma ji for the further proceeding. Thank you so much. Over to you, Ms. Manorma.
Thank you, Mr. Vikas Kumar. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vikas Kumar, for your welcome address. Now, I would like to invite our chief guest, Pauline, Professor Pauline Stoltz, who's the editor of this book. Over to you, ma'am.
Professor Pauline, ma'am, you are
You
mute.
are not audible.
You are mute.
Voice,
Oh,
voice. Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you for these wonderful introductions. Birte and I are very happy to join you today. We have prepared a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to start out, and Birte will continue. So let me just see if I can share this with you. I tried it earlier on and it worked. So let's hope it does this time as well. There we go. Let me see. And now you can see me, right?
Yeah. Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Yes,
Your PPT
great.
is showing. Yeah, yes, madam. 1 minute,
Great.
Madam, please.
So this
madam,
is...
Madam, sorry for interfere. Professor Debi, madam, can you listen us?
Yes?
Madam, if possible, then please.
yes.
Madam, if possible, then please.
I can listen.
Okay, madam, if possible, then please open your video, madam. It's my request to you.
Okay, I've done it. Right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
please go ahead, Professor Pauline.
Okay. Yes. This is... Let me see here if I can... There. This is a picture of Birte and myself when we just had received the handbook, because this handbook has been published in 2024, so that was earlier this summer. And we have been working on it for about 3 years. With, as you can see, it is a really big book with lots and lots of chapters. We've had about 45 contributors, and because it was so big, we also had a number of section editors. Now, what I am going to do is to introduce you very generally to this book and to ourselves. And then Birte is going to talk about the first chapter, which is the introductory chapter to the book. But we thought it would be a good idea if we could introduce ourselves first. Birte, do you want to start by saying something about yourself?
Okay, I can do it. Wait a minute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Oops.
I thought I was muted. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much for this kind invitation, which is an excellent. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. It's it's an excellent opportunity to present the handbook. We are very proud of it, and it has been a really long learning process for both of us. Before that, I've been a professor at Aalborg University since 2004. I'm a political scientist, and many of my previous research projects have centered around Europe, because there is a European horizon. There's a lot of opportunities in Europe to have research project funded. So I've been very fortunate to take part in a number of European research projects, which has really been a fantastic learning process about different countries in Europe, mainly. It's something called the Eurosphere project and the RACE project, and it has been great learning process. So for me, this is really the first time that we and I engaged in a truly global, a truly transnational and global initiative. I've been, in terms of methodology and theory, I've been concentrating on intersectionality, developing for the last 10 years the intersectionality process. This is the first time we really engaged, or I really in transnational, in linking the intersectional to the transnational. And this has been a really, really great process about the African continent, a little bit about the Asian continent also. I'm afraid there's only one chapter from India, about the Latin American continent, and so on. So Asia also, we have been fortunate, and Pauline has some experiences and relations and so on for her previous work and engagement with Asia. So this is just to say that for us, it has been a great opportunity to be able to collect and gather all these 45 authors from many different continents, and it has been a great pleasure to work with all of them. And especially Pauline has, we have different experiences. So I'll hand the word over to Pauline, who will explain about herself. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So my name is Pauline Stoltz. And if Birte has been working at Aalborg University in Denmark, then in those countries, in terms of transnational issues and other types of experiences, amongst others related to how both of us, for example, then all have European Union citizenship, which is a regional type of citizenship. My own work has been amongst others related to gender and citizenship and human rights in collaborations between Nordic scholars and scholars in China. I've been doing work on Asia. I've written a book about memory politics in Indonesia. And part of this book about this Palgrave Handbook of Gender and Citizenship I did when I was working in Taiwan. So my interest in Asian issues has been great, and I was very happy to see that my former PhD student from Aalborg, Sutanita Banerjee, also could join us, because she is back in India and working there. In terms of the section editors, you can see that we have 5 section editors, and there are 5 sections in the book. When we chose those section editors, we we hoped we could be joined by people from different parts of the world, because, as Birte already mentioned, we try to be as global as possible in our outreach, although our base has been in Europe. And that meant that we could be joined by Amanda Gauss, who is professor from South Africa, Kapana Kanabiran, who's from India, Monica Mokre, who's based in Austria, and so is Birgit Sauer, and Wendy Sarvasi, who is in the United States. And they have also helped us to see if we could get contributors that could come from different parts of the world, so that we could get different types of perspectives. And that ended up with about 45 contributors. So these are the different parts, the sections of the handbook. We start out with one part on theories, perspectives, and approaches, which is a very basic and general. With one on time, place, and contemporary issues and challenges, transformative potential, social justice, and social justice. You wanted to say something, Birte?
Your slides are not moving.
You wanted to... Oh, okay. I don't know why that is. Let me see if I can do something about that. Here, can you see it now? Is this working?
No.
The slides are not moving, ma'am. They're not changing from one to the another.
No more?
No. We're still on the first slide.
Okay. Let me see if... is that the slide that... Okay, because I
Here's
have
the
been
front.
moving. Oh, that is a pity. Which button should I push? Because I see that there is an arrow on my screen, which should say that it should go to the next one. Does that help? No.
Yeah,
Wait.
that helps.
Okay, if
Can
so,
you make
this
it-
is moving. Now it is moving, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
So-
it's moving.
If we
Can you make
if
the
we do
bigger?
it like this, then now you can see the part about. No, I can't make them bigger, because then you cannot see them anymore.
Okay.
Apparently,
Okay.
because that is what I tried to do.
Okay.
So let's keep it at this one, so that it at least works. So this is, oh, then you didn't see our wonderful picture either. This is the one I was talking to all the time. But here are the sections. So there are 5 sections, and I already mentioned the first 4 and the afterwards and future directions and visions, hopes and challenges, we asked a number of people, amongst others people that inspired a lot of the contributors. Because it was very interesting to see that regardless of what ideas Birte and I had about, well, it could be with these theories and perspectives, we were very, we asked people to interpret themselves how they wanted to solve the task of writing a chapter. And that meant that there were issues that came up about that more when we're going through the different parts. So now I hope you can see the slide about part 1, about theories, perspectives and approaches, which has these chapters, and they come after the chapter that see. The first one is about statelessness, which was a very good way of talking about showing what citizenship is and isn't, what a problem it can be if you don't have it. So it brings up the issue of citizenship in a very particular way, more or less showing its boundaries, and also gave an opportunity to talk about the role of gender in relation to citizenship. And the examples that are used here, the case of this state, which is a very topical issue. Now, if you look at the titles here, now this whole issue of decolonization and post-colonial perspectives was something that came up very strongly contributed in the came up a lot was if we go to that a lot of the people also wanted to situate the type of discussion that was held about not only focus on formal and legal aspects, but also on the practices of citizenship. Where, for example, the work from Engin Easing became very topical. And here you can also see that the first chapter in part 2 is by and she's written about citizenship as intimate belonging, and Asari Begum and the grandmothers of Shaheen Bak, and that might be familiar to many of you. Then it to start with was from for Birte and myself, but it as with all the other chapters, it's been to work on this. And here you can also see that, for example, in the end, it mentions EU citizenship and the European Parliament as a regional type of citizenship, but also above that, chapters about Ghana and Uganda, about Australia, about the Americas. So there's an attempt to at least cover a lot of issues that relate to different aspects of time, place, and space. The third part is about contemporary issues. See that there is, for example, a chapter about contested citizenship in a settler colony, which is about indigenous issues and indigenous citizenship. There are also a lot of discussions about anti-gender mobilizations, and these are recognizable as well in different parts of the world. Here there is a chapter, for example, from Roma Kohar and Mojca Pachnik about Central Eastern Europe and the way it can be recognized there. Very often that type of mobilizations is also related to right-wing contestations of women's and gender rights, which Birgit Sauer has been writing about. And the next one about the far right and anti-gender politics. You can see that there's a lot of things going on. My name has been popping up already in the first chapter when I wrote about memory politics. Here it comes up together with a colleague from Russia who is working in the UK called Anna Klusova, because the notion of sexual citizenship is also very topical. And there are a lot of issues that, for example, relate to notions of nationalisms and bordering, also in the case of Russia and Russian LGBT activism. LGBT activism and LGBT rights is also topical in Asia. And, for example, Stuart Chung has been writing about that in relation to comparisons that can be made between Singapore and Taiwan. And then we have one about academic citizenship as well. The fourth part is about transformative potentials and social justice. And here Birte has, for example, a chapter which is related to gender, citizenship, and climate change. Transformative potentials can also be recognized in relation to indigenous citizenship, again, where the example here is from Greenland. There are, Amanda Gauss has been writing about acts of citizenship, which is something that is, amongst others, a term that is used and introduced by Engin Isin that I mentioned earlier. And here she writes about sexual violence in South Africa. The afterword has, amongst others, a chapter by Engin Isin, who writes about whose language is citizenship, but also about a chapter by Raymond Connell, whom a lot of you might know about because of their work on masculinity studies. Sumi Maddock is a younger scholar who has written a short chapter with notes on anti-imperial epistemic justice. And from Argentina, we have a chapter by Maria Alicia Gutierrez, who wrote about issues related to abortion, which are very topical in different parts of the world for many different reasons. So that is a very quick and broad overview of this huge chapter. It's a huge book with, 700-800 pages. Now, obviously, we cannot do justice to all of the chapters. That would be way too difficult. But we thought that Birte could give you an impression of what we thought were things that we could address, at least in the beginning of the book. So from the end, let's go to the beginning and to Birte, so that she can talk about the intersectional and transnational approaches to gender and citizenship. Birte, do you want to take over, and then you can just let me know when you want me to change the slides?
Okay.
That is probably the easiest way. Then you don't have to.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you very much, Pauline. I hope that gave an overview of the whole book. Although it's maybe difficult to read the details, but I'll make sure to read them out in the next slides. So as you can see, our whole challenge, the challenge in this book has been a kind of very ambitious attempt to combine two really very important approaches. One is the intersectional that we've been working with for many years, and then the other, the transnational. And it's really, it has been like that different scholars, groups of scholars often have been engaged in either one or the other. Either the intersectional is the most important thing, or the transnational is the most important thing. So for us, the whole challenge was to try to combine the two. Okay, how did we do that then? Well, in terms of intersectionality, that has been around for a long time. You probably know it's a theoretical as well as a methodological tool for theorizing multiple differences and inequalities. So this has been an excellent... Pardon me? What? Yeah, you also went out sometimes. I hope I'm back. So
yes,
that
you are.
Okay. It's you who falls out sometimes, I think. Anyway, this has been a very important approach to theorizing multiple differences, not only gender and men, but class and race and sexual differences and so on. So this has been a very important approach for us. So, but in this, the book, we also try to integrate the transnational term. And the transnational term has been a very, very important way for many scholars to overcome what they call, Glick Schiller calls methodological nationalism. You could also say that, I'll come back to that, that a common goal has been also overcoming Western universalism. I'll come back to that because this, of course, this is one of the important goals of also the transnational term, so that it's not, we'll come back to how citizenship now was originally developed in Europe. So, us in the book, and for many of the scholars in the different 5 parts, the challenge has really been how to link these two very, very important approaches, intersectional and transnational, to gender and citizenship, which citizenship was from its start a very national concept developed in Europe. So we'll come back to it. Now, I'll turn to the next slide. Yeah, as you can see, it shows that citizenship has been, is, and has been a contested and also a Western conceptual approach. And so it was developed, as you probably know if you work on it, by the British scholar T.H. Marshall, who was engaging in combining the social and political and the civil aspect of citizenship. And for him, citizenship meant equal rights. So it's equal rights within the nation state. So citizenship has been one, and still is actually, one of the key concepts in political and democratic theory. So again, for feminist research, from the start, from the 70s and the 80s, the challenge has been, how do you link the public with the private, the political sphere and democracy with the family and women's roles as mothers and wives? This has been the feminist challenge. So anyway, if we go back to the classics is, of course, also Hannah Arendt, the great German scholar, Jewish scholar who had to flee from Germany to Switzerland, to France, and to the US. So for her, she had the famous saying that I love, citizenship, it's about the right to have rights. Who has the right to have rights? And it's about the majority and minorities, and the problems also for women and ethnic and migrant minorities and so on. Also in Europe in the 30s, and it's still a problem today. So it's really about relations between the dominant majority in a country, which can be very different, and then all the different minorities. And of course, women are neither a majority but she's both part of the majority and minorities. So it's about power. Citizenship is about power, but it's also about how to empower minorities and women's groups, how to get everybody's rights included in this concept of citizenship. So the challenge has also always been linking the local. There's a lot going on the local level. We all know that. And I realize that India is such a big, almost a continent with so many different states. So the local and the national, the different states, the regional and the transnational. So that becomes very, very complicated how you can combine that in one concept. It's a challenge. Okay, we move on. Yeah, so since the late 1970s, I think, there has been among feminist scholars approaches to gender citizenship in what we call critical feminist scholarship. So this is about, as I mentioned, theorizing this public-private, which is at the center of citizenship. How do you include mothers and wives as equal citizens? This is still an issue in many parts of the world. And I'm really very curious how you see it from the Indian perspective. Maybe we can discuss that. So this is also about what kind of strategies do you have, do you think about for women's empowerment and inclusion? And here we also in Scandinavia, Helga Marie Hernes was one of the ones saying, you need to combine from below and from above. From below, mobilization of marginalized groups, and from above, include in democracy, in the political debate. So, as Pauline mentioned, one of the important key concepts for us has been borders and bordering. It seems that borders and bordering is a very important way of keeping people apart. There are two wars in Europe, at the moment. It's a very good illustration, and it's actually near Yuval Davis, who is a wonderful friend and scholar of us for many years, who has written a whole book which is based upon empirical research also, where she theorized among these border and bordering. So if you're interested, 2019 is a wonderful book. And she really also tries there to bridge this intersectional with the transnational, because borders kind of let us move beyond borders to the transnational level. Okay, we move on also to the next. Yeah. You can move on, Pauline. Yeah, here we go. So, of course, I said citizenship is a contested concept. Of course, gender is also and has become, again, a very, very contested and also a traveling concept, which is important.
I will go to my village. Then
Pardon me?
move on to keep the packet. No. After returning from home, I will leave the packet. No.
Okay, please, madam, please.
Is it okay?
No, madam, please.
Should I continue?
And please continue.
I continue. It was gender as a contested concept, and we realize now there is a political opposition, as Pauline already mentioned, a political opposition against this classical UN, United Nations Declaration about gender equality for women and girls and equal human rights. We see also in Europe, and I guess from the book, it's all over the world, there are kind of anti-gender movements where, I mean, some of the sayings are, yes, women are, men are, they are equal but different. So we need women to take care of the children again. So there is also a current trend, again, very visible in Europe, but all over the world, to renationalize gender equality and sexual rights, which have been generally part of human rights in UN declarations. So we see in Europe, again, and all over the world, far rights resistant to what they call this general gender ideology. And by that, they mean women's equal rights. They are against that. So we have new debates about sexual citizenship and intimate citizenship. There is a very interesting, and we have chapters about these concepts. And we have a very interesting chapter on masculinity, because masculinity has come up, dominant, hegemonic masculinities, or also alternative masculinities, intersectional and queer and gender approaches. We have chapters concerning that in the book. So for us in the book, it has been a common project. How do you avoid to universalize Western constructions of citizenship? And this is really, I've been working on citizenship since 2000, the last more than 20 years. And I really see this problem of avoiding universalizing Western constructions of citizenship as one of the main problems. And, the point is just very simple, that citizenship, it's traveling, it's both contested and traveling. And it has been traveled from the global north to countries across the world. And of course, changing the content and the dynamic in this process. So we shouldn't universalize our thinking. Thank you. And then the next, I have a few slides more. Next slide, please. Pauline? Yeah. Okay. Summing up this first, I would say citizenship, contested, traveling concept, the anti-gender movement, such as the present in the US election, it's very clear. It's a reaction against the global trends in countries across the world to engage in and defend gender, LGBTQ plus and trans issues. This is a new development that many countries defend that and have that as a goal. So the anti-gender movement can see it as a kind of reaction against that. So the second conclusion here is that gender and citizenship scholars, we see that they are increasingly engaged in post-colonial approaches and also in developing decolonial thoughts as a way of thinking. And we have wonderful chapters which concern post-colonial approaches and decolonial thoughts. Amanda Gouch from South Africa, her chapter is a very good illustration of that. And so from a global perspective, there are challenges to issues of gender and sexuality, and they all raise key questions about people's, women's, men's identities, about their belonging, where do we belong, the politics of belonging, and also about, and this is not least important, about everyday practices and resources for different groups of women situated around the world. Yeah, okay, we move on. I still have, there's still something to tell from the book. Yeah, so now this is where we come to how do you combine these intersectional and transnational approaches? There are different ways of doing that, and different scholars have attempted to do that in the book. So one, Pauline already mentioned Engin Easing, who has been a big inspiration. Well, one goal was to develop this multi-level citizenship, which is moving beyond the nation state in all these different levels, regional, local, national, global, but also to include different actors, sites and scales and acts. So this is really a complex but wonderful approach that Easing has developed. The other thing is to understand intersectionality as a situated concept. It's influenced, and this is, of course, I think this is so obvious. Citizenship is influenced by people's histories. I mean, we are different in Denmark, even Denmark and Sweden, from India and the United States and other parts of Europe. So these histories, people's histories, location, where they live, and what kind of social positions, are you in the majority or minorities, the marginal or the powerful, this makes a difference for how you understand intersectionality in different situations. So again, the transnational approaches are inspired by both decolonial thought and post-colonial research, who with the aim, actually the common aim, to study transnational feminisms beyond how do you unite feminism in different countries on the global, on the transnational. Okay, a little bit, if we move on. So we move on just briefly to the post-colonial and decolonial thinking, because this is moving beyond the national borders. So post-colonial is defined as the period after colonialism. The focus is here on the legacy of colonialism for gendered power relations. And it focuses on the diversity of actors, sites, levels, and scales of politics. So this is a post. And then we have the decolonial approaches, which focus on the dominant effects of the ideas of European modernity across the world, how important European modernity has been for the thinking of all of us. So, decolonial approaches will criticize trends towards what we call methodological universalism. And this is a wonderful concept which Mohanty developed in 1984. It's a kind of it's a danger of universalizing feminism and universalizing Western values of equality and justice, thinking that equality means the same thing all over the world. Of course, there are these different histories that we need to take into account. So, also decolonial thought recently have written about the normative dilemmas in terms of what are the dilemmas of generalizing and universalizing Western values. And here, Serene from 2018 has a really important book about these dilemmas for feminist thinking. Okay. I can see I need to move a little quicker, maybe. Next slide, please. Yeah. So we see, we find that now I'm moving to present times, the multiple crises with gender politics and feminist activism. What is that like in these times of multiple crises? So we have many feminist frameworks trying to understand the multiple global crises, and some of it is inspired by Donna Haraway's seminal work, The Cyborg Manifesto, still very challenging and still very. And later, Learning to Live with the Trouble. So this is something I've been also interested in the chapter I've written about the climate, and I use Wendy Harcourt's dilemma, how to think and do feminist solidarity and contribute to positive futures, being aware of deep socio-economic inequalities that exist around the world today. So I just wanted to mention, if you are interested in these issues, that Harcourt has engaged in a big collaborative project, a WEGO project about well-being, ecology, gender, and community, which is published as an open access book. And I have a reference, Agostino et al. From 2023. And this project, I think, is very innovative in terms of it aims to learn from indigenous people. It learns about building knowledge and relations with the more than human. This is about ecology, political ecology, building society with women, but also with the more than humans, and women as environmental defenders on the frontiers. So it's a very positive interpretation of women's potential roles fighting for climate and environmental sustainability. Okay, I move on. Next slide. Pauline? Yeah. So in the book, we also, and in the chapter, we also reflect on the challenge today to equality to social and reproductive justice solidarity. And this is, we find that feminist scholar activists, as they call themselves, also Wendy Harcourt calls herself scholar activist, have engaged in normative struggles to create equality, social, reproductive justice, and solidarity. So some of these more, we call it inclusive strategies, are premised on reflective solidarity, Jodi Dean, or reproductive justice, involves human and non-humans, and this is Donna Haraway, and this is Harcourt's work from 2022. And then again, one of our favorites, Engin Easin, Acts of Citizenship, which focuses on agency and claims to rights across borders, on citizens' activism, on solidarity movements inspired by the dual international, intersectional, and transnational gates. And Easin's books from 2009 already were engaged with that. Okay, we move on quickly. I can see it takes time. Pauline, alternative to, and I would just mention that we have in the book also two Indian scholars, and I'll go very fast. You're probably familiar with them, but one which has in us its alternative approaches to justice from Indian scholars. One is Shirin Rai's approach, and you can see in the book it's 8, it's 14, it's 17. It's inspired by women's performative agency in India. It focuses on dilemmas and risks faced by women involved in struggles for social justice. And what she says, what she emphasizes is that these risks involve agency, both on the individual, collective levels, institutional, and what she says, reputational. I think this is something concerning India, but also directly physical risk. If you engage in struggles, and I think the Indian example is a good example of that. So Ray argues social justice must include everyday politics on poverty. So very inspiring work. The other is Kanya Surya, very recently, who is concerned about the polycrisis as a crisis of social reproduction. So if you're interested in present economic, ecological struggles, she's a very good scholar, and she's concerned about the contradiction between capitalism and care. And she says the current polycrisis combined a socio-economic and an ecological crisis. And this is really a crisis for social reproduction. So there's a lot of food for thought in her also. I go a little quickly. I can see I'm so we are, I'll summarize here on the reflections and current challenges. The main challenge, we argue, is to develop feminist approaches aimed to rethink citizenship from this dual intersectional and transnational approach. I mentioned that before. Another major challenge, develop feminist approaches able to overcome methodological nationalism and Western universalism, as well as methodological universalism. Finally, we argue that you need to explore analytical and normative potentials and challenges in developing these more inclusive strategies, guided by both transnational social, reproductive justice and solidarity. It's not easy, but feminist scholar activists are trying to do that around the world. So the last two slides go like this. It's about the future challenge for feminist scholar activists. So the need to expand our perspectives to be able to deal with the political and environmental crisis. And we find that this is really a challenge, because usually either you deal with social political and then you may be a Marxist or maybe a post-Marxist, or you deal with the environmental crisis, then you are a ecological scholar. So we need to bridge the conversations to develop feminist strategies able to deal with multiple and diverse effects of the current environmental and climate changes, overcome, and to explore the dilemmas facing feminist scholar activists engaged in local global structures for social, reproductive, and environmental justice. So this is, now I come to the last slide. And this is just to open. This is nothing that we have in our book yet, because this is for future discussions. I just wanted to mention it in terms, because I think it's important. This is about the intersection of family, migration, and climate. So family politics, I noticed, has come on the issue again in all politics. Why is that? It's because politicians are concerned about social reproduction of people's lives. So we see recent trends to falling birth rates, with fertility rates below 2.1 children per women. So the big question is, it has paradoxical effects. It's good for the economy, but bad. It's good for the environmental sustainability, but bad for the economy. So the big question I just wanted to open for you, young scholars who have the future in your hands, is how the trends will affect family and gender politics in different countries, for instance, in India. So I give the word to you. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Birte ma'am and Professor Pauline ma'am. So, madam, after the presidential remark, we will take the questions from the participants.
Okay.
Professor Birte ma'am, can you listen us? Okay, Professor Birte ma'am. I think Manorma ji, my wife.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I would like to express my sincere gratitude to both of you, Professor Birte Siim and Professor Pauline Stoltz, for this enriching discussion on this book. And thank you for helping us delve into this book across various themes and chapters through your lens. Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. And we deeply appreciate your time and efforts you have put into this and sharing your expertise with us. Thank you so much. And people, those who are working in this research area, I believe that they have learned or gained something from this discussion, and it will be helpful in their research work. Thank you so much to both of you, ma'am. Moving on, I would like to invite Professor Debi Chatterjee for the presidential remark. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Manorama. I must, first of all, thank Indian Research Scholars Association for giving me this opportunity to listen to very fascinating discussions on a wonderful book that has just come out, the Palgrave Handbook of Gender and Citizenship. I must thank the editors, Professor Birte Siim and Professor Pauline Stoltz. They have done a wonderful job here. And I have the opportunity of glancing through the book. I got a copy of the soft copy of the book just a couple of days back, and I did manage to glance through it. I wouldn't say I've been able to read this voluminous book as yet, but bits and pieces looking through it, I have really found it to be a very nice book. And from the discussions that have taken place today, the perspective of the book has been clearly revealed by the editors. For those who have not been able to access the book as yet, I'm sure all of you would be looking into this book. The focus of the book is essentially on gender and citizenship from a couple of... am I audible?
Yes, madam. Yes, you are audible,
Yes,
madam.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right, on gender and citizenship from a couple of angles, the intersectional angle from one angle, and the transnational perspective. It is, the thrust is on the post-90s scenario, though obviously the backdrop comes from a much earlier period and comes into the discussion. The book is essentially interdisciplinary from what I have gathered. The authors have attempted a critical rethinking on several issues, including citizenship, including relations between individuals and political communities, the role of the nation state, etc. The question of human rights has come up very prominently in the discussions, and the relations between the public and private arena, as always, becomes a very central focal point of discussion in feminist discourse. The classical understanding of citizenship had focused largely on the public arena. Feminist scholars have challenged that and attempted to go beyond it. What I found particularly interesting, glancing through the book, what I had found to be particularly interesting was that the book looks at the whole spectrum of identities in the discussion of gender, rather than presenting it as a binary. In most books on gender, we find it to be a discussion of a question of women's rights only, whereas here the question of women's rights have come up alongside LGBTQ rights. The issues of gender has been projected or viewed as a whole spectrum rather than a binary. The role of borders, the significance of borders have been discussed in the book, and obviously the question of democracy, citizenship rights, differences in terms of social identities have come up. Much has been said in this book. I understand from what I have seen, once again saying I have not really had the opportunity of reading through the book thoroughly. But from what I have seen, what I have gathered, and from today's discussions undertaken by the editors, much has been said in the books. But at the same time, I feel much more awaits to be said. And in fact, the editors in this book and in their discussion have pushed us in that direction. They have made us raise questions. As the editors have mentioned, the Western focus of discussions has always been a limitation so far of feminist discourse. Feminist discourse from its beginning till now, even with the inputs from other countries, non-Western countries, with those inputs, still I would say it retains a Western thrust. Though there is a clear attempt to break out from the Eurocentric approach, but the Western thrust tends to remain as a problem, as a difficult area to negotiate. It is important it has come up. Political right, I'm saying. The question of the political right comes up. The role of religion in gender oppression, I suppose, needs to be elaborately looked into. Not just one religion, but I would say religions per se. The role of religions per se in perpetrating gender oppression or gender divide or denying the rights to certain gender categories is an important dimension that needs to be explored in details. Makes us think that the parameters of scholarship and movement have been widening over the years. In gender discussions, it is on widening in multiple terms. One, in terms of identities, which I have already referred to. The spectrum is widening, as this book clearly reveals. We have clearly moved away from a binary approach. It is also widening in terms of the acknowledgement of intersectionality, which is today, particularly since the 90s, I would say, it has clearly entered the mainstream discourse of gender studies. This transnational perspective has become an important dimension, and the gap which I have, or the problem area which I have already referred to, the Eurocentric thrust which has been there, it is being recognized as a problem area, or if I may say, a weakness of the approach till now of mainstream gender discourse. The very fact that when we recognize a problem, we tend to go beyond it. We tend to overcome the problem. And I think we are already on that path. We are on that path of trying to overcome the Eurocentric thrust. The differences. There are increasing demands for women's voices to be heard in the development discourses. The question of environmental rights comes up with ecofeminism and from other angles. How women's rights can make a difference in development discourses in different countries. Within borders, while it is very important to that across countries, experiences of women are different because of historical settings, historical conditions that they go through. The social systems
they are in, it is also important to recognize the fact that countries, within countries, different categories of women. When I say different categories of women, I'm not simply referring to class. I am referring to different identities based on social formulations of those countries. Different categories of women have different experiences. Experiences within their families, within their social systems, experiences in terms of their interactions with the state. For example, coming from India as I do, if I just take the case of India, I would say the experience of an upper caste Hindu woman is not the same as the experience of a Hindu woman at the lowest point of the caste hierarchy, who is referred to as a Dalit. Her at multiple levels, I emphasize the fact multiple levels, starting from the home to the public space, from what is, I have problems with the term the private space also, but I'm not going into that debate. But from the home to the public space, the experiences are clearly different. The country remains constant. The statehood scenario is the same. Constitutional rights are the same. The democratic system is the same. But the experiences they go through, the interactions, their agency is not the same. The movements they undertake are not the same. Similarly, when I would look at women coming from minority communities and the majority community, experiences are different. When I would look at the woman coming from a tribal community in the same country, experiences are different. Agency is different. The way they look at citizenship or enjoy their citizenship rights, within quotes, I would say, and in certain cases with a question mark also, because in many cases they would hardly be aware of their rights. The way they enjoy their rights is not the same. At the different levels of the government, which you have already referred to, the central level, the state levels, the local levels, their interactions or the comfort of interaction, if I may use the word comfort of interaction, their voices are differently expressed. They reach out differently, depending again on their locale, their caste, their religion. Whether they would be more vocal at the level of the local government could very well depend on where they stay, and the bulk of the Dalit population is rural, village-based. Where they stay, they are more comfortable interacting there rather than with interacting with Parliament. So I think going beyond the borders, looking at Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, looking at different continents, it's not just a question of different histories we are looking at. Different cultural settings, a similar picture would come up when you're looking at Africa. Look at the different African states. having different cultural milieus. The interactions women have with the state, the way they interact, the way they claim their rights, the way they voice their pains, their trauma, is not the same from one group to another group in the same state. The state having the same borders, the same legal frame, giving the same citizenship rights. It is not just gender that divides the people. Or in other words, women do not form a homogeneous group, even in these, if we recognize the differences of the states and borders. Within the borders, women are again an extremely heterogeneous group. And of course, the same applies when we are looking at the LGBTQ community. Their problems added because of certain other factors. All again revolving around the question of the body. All again focusing when we are looking at women, when we are looking at the LGBTQ community, we are finding that their experiences are very different. And there again, the wider frame that becomes, I would say, not always so visible, but which is very real, is the frame of religion. Religion defines cultural norms. Religion defines what one is to enjoy and not to enjoy. And depending on the body, depending on sexual identity, what can be enjoyed and what cannot be enjoyed, who is to be marginalized and who is to occupy the central space is defined. So these links, I think, become very important. Once again, I would not take up much of your time. I was simply pointing these out because, as I said, from what you have given us an enormous source of thought. Lots of matter that we have to think about. And probably research would go on according to directions that you have already indicated. Congratulations for this wonderful work that you have done. Thank you very much once again. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insights on the on this book, and thank you for highlighting various, adding your perspective to this conversation, which has been very grateful to all of us. Thank you, Professor Debi Chatterjee, ma'am. So moving on, now we open the platform for the questions. We'll begin the Q&A session right now. So if you have any queries, you may raise your hand and ask the queries to our delegates.
So first question, I think Shruti Kresanwani want to ask something. First Shruti Kresanwani, second Rifa Tabassum. Shruti, can you listen me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please ask the question. Yeah.
A very warm good afternoon to one and only present over here. This is Shruti Kishirwani from IGNTU, Amakantak. As Professor Birte ma'am have mentioned about the gender as a contested and traveling concept, so from that I have a question that how does the evolving concept of citizenship intersect with gender, and in what ways does it shape inclusion and exclusion, particularly for women and LGBTQ plus individuals?
Birte ma'am. Birte ma'am, you are mute. Please unmute yourself.
Pauline, maybe you would. Pauline, would you care to?
It's a very general question. I think it's. I mean, the answer is more or less the whole book. As far as I understood what you meant. What we're trying to do, if we summarize it very quickly, then it is very much a matter of looking at citizenship in its different dimensions and saying that gender impacts upon the way we think about citizenship. Because it has to do with issues of rights and responsibilities, which are key concepts when you think about citizenship, but it has also to do with the practices that lay behind that. It's not only a matter of national rights and human rights, it's also a matter of as Debi Chatterjee earlier said, the comfort of interaction on different levels of politics, for example. And the way that we then think about, for example, women. But one of the points of the book is also to say that there's a difference between focusing on gender as woman, and then we already say there are so many differences between women themselves. So it would be different with that comfort of interaction, depending upon the woman we're talking about. But that it is also important to open up the whole notion of gender and say that when we talk about men, there are a lot of differences between men as well. There are a lot of differences between other categories that intersect with gender, such as caste or class or religion or indigeneity, sexuality, that also make that we need to take those very situated aspects of citizenship, those very local ones, just as much into consideration as the more national or global or transnational aspects of it. I hope that answers your question. Otherwise, Birte, perhaps?
Yes, ma'am, I get the answer. But I have one more question.
Mm-hmm.
How do gendered migration patterns affect women's access to citizenship and rights in host countries?
Can you repeat that? It was about migration, but then...
My question is, how do gendered migration patterns affect women's access to citizenship and rights in host countries?
Birte, do you want to take this one? Because I heard you have to unmute.
Yeah. Yes, I think both questions were very much to the point. And I must say, I also really enjoyed, and I totally agree with Professor Debi Chatterjee's important point about some things that we need to expand on. I think it was a very, very good point to say we are widening up the whole field of gender and citizenship. But of course, we haven't solved. I mean, that's impossible because one of the points is exactly that it makes a difference where you're talking from. And I think also with your first question, as with your second question, Shruti, it's something. This is why I mentioned the two Indian cases, that many of these problems really need to be analyzed with case studies, with situated local case studies from different places, because you cannot generalize these questions about religion, the body, migration. What country are you talking about? Migrating from where to where, and what kind of groups? I mean, what we see in Europe about migration is that first it's men who migrate very much and leave women behind, and they are remitting back to the families. But in other countries, and there is actually, I think there's a chapter, but I mean, in other countries, we see in Spain or we see in the US that women come. And when women are migrating, you get other problems in terms of leaving their children in their own countries and so on. So it's really, I mean, we haven't covered the whole thing. It's impossible. So I think these very, very important questions that you raise, some of these questions need to be analyzed in greater detail by PhD, postdoc studies, doing case studies of particular cases and spaces. For instance, India, coming from where, going to where, what kind of Indian states are we talking about? Is it Kerala or the other? So I think this is one of the implications of our studies, that you need to go on by case studies, by PhD studies, by postdoc studies, and so on. We cannot solve it, but it's I really think it's important to carry on for young researchers and young scholars by doing their case studies in particular places. So it's not to be generalized about this issue. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I hope you understand.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for answering.
Thank you, ma'am. I think you both have addressed the questions of Shruti Kesarwani, and I hope that Shruti will be purchased this book, and you will find several concepts regarding your questions. So second questions, Rifat Abusum are here. Rifat Abusum ji, are you here?
I'm here, Vikash sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Vikash sir, thank you so much. A very good afternoon, teachers. My name is Rifat Abassum. I'm a research scholar in the Department of Political Science, Aligarh Muslim University. My research area is specifically dealt with gender issues and women rights. Before going ahead, I'd like to thank Pauline ma'am, Birte ma'am, and Professor Chatterjee ma'am. Thank you so much for your immense for your valuable words and your time, which is no doubt very valuable. If I come now, as no doubt you both have done a very amazing work, and you both are an icon of gender parity and women rights. The book, coming on to the book, the Palgrave Handbook on Gender and Citizenship. It's a book which very beautifully encompasses the thrust of women rights issues and future challenges in correlation with women citizenship rights. So it will definitely going to serve the cause of gender parity and sensitizing the nation, not only the nation, but approaching the globe as well, towards sensitization of women issues and challenges. Ma'am, it's an amazing book, and I will definitely going to purchase it because it will serve the cause of women, the feminists. It will definitely going to work for the feminist activists who work in the field of gender issues and challenges. In the book, you have very well dealt with the intersectional and the transnational approaches with which you try to answer the question related to how laws and policies surrounding citizenship affect the rules and regulations of minorities and other women communities, right, ma'am? So, ma'am, it's a blend of contemporary issues as well as you gave a lens of 90s to this book, and quotes of Hannah Arendt and Thomas Jefferson, as ma'am Birte ma'am had already mentioned, added more objectivity to the text. So it will definitely going to work in the globe as well as in our nation, India. So thank you so much. Now coming on to my question, ma'am. The question is that what do you think, ma'am, that how laws and do you think that in what way does women's citizenship influence the political participation and representation in legislative bodies? It's from my question. Shall I repeat my question, ma'am? Birte ma'am and Pauline ma'am, is it clear that what I am saying? Am I audible? Birte ma'am? Ma'am, unmute your...
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you ask how the laws of citizenship can influence women's rights or participation.
Yeah. And
okay.
representation in legislative bodies.
Yeah, women's participation. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I think the first reflection is that, I mean, citizenship laws, it's not enough. I mean, you can give equal rights to women. And I mean, we have some examples. Actually, I'm working on some examples at the moment. You give equal rights to women to vote, for instance. I mean, this is one of the classical rights. But then maybe there goes, I don't know, in the US case, that goes like 50 or 60 years before women get into a parliament, before they use these votes. And still, if you take the US case, women are still not very represented in parliament, or in representative house, and in politics. So I mean, but I guess the answer is that it's. I mean, this is one question. If women have the rights, how do they use them? And I think what we point out is mobilization of women. It's always. I mean, this is the only way. A mobilization from below, in terms of these women who have the rights. So this is what I mean. I think this is obvious from history that you can only achieve, I mean, you can only carry through these rights if you mobilize. I mean, women's movements have always been like that, fighting for new rights. So also in terms of representation in parliament, I mean, in Europe, I don't remember, I think we have some of the chapters working on gender quotas. This has been one of the measures in Europe, which doesn't, in Denmark we haven't gender quotas. We are the exception, and without gender quotas, women and we have a women states minister. So it's possible, but I mean, these are some of the instruments. But then the other question is, what about women who don't have citizen right? I mean, this was the migration question we had before. All of these women who come, I mean, actually in many parts to Spain and to the US, to help in agriculture, they don't have rights and leave families in the country where they come from. So yeah, they're totally different. It's two different issues. Women who have the rights, how do they be represented in politics, in parliament? The other issue is the migrant women without this access to citizenship, who live in the countries without having the right to be in parliament. So I think, and this is about, I think this connects feminist scholar activists in terms of how do all women acquire these rights. That's one question. The next is, of course, how do you get, how can you mobilize to use these rights? That's your question. And that's also very contextual. But it's a good research question. So I hope you research. Okay.
Including that a lot of these discussions about quotas also end up in the binary that we are challenging, because it does end up in terms of can there be quotas for women, for example? But then how about quotas for minority women or men? So the whole intersectional issue that can be related to quotas as well. There is some comparative research about that you can look up in relation to what the hindrances are for participatory representation of also different categories of women and men.
Yes.
Because the intersection of power inequalities can be very complex, as we have been discussing already. And the activists that could or should be related to that could also then identify what the actual hindrances are in particular contexts. So if you look at the combination of intersectionality and quotas and activism, then you might end up with good research about that.
Yes, ma'am, definitely, ma'am. Ma'am, thank you so much for your advice, and ma'am, I will definitely going to work on it. Firstly, the advice which Birte ma'am have gave to me, that it's a very contextual question. It was a very contextual question, and it demands a lot of things to mention first. So as we have a short period of time, so we can't quote everything on this platform, but definitely I will work on it. And ma'am, as Pauline ma'am has suggested me, that for that purpose I need to focus on the quota system also. That Dalrup, one of a very significant book of Dalrup regarding the quota system, I just go through it, and it was an amazing book, which the gist of the book is like quota system that is regarding the representation of women in politics. So that quota system, or the reservation policy, we can say in simple terms, is something which is questionable, as it's not something which will 100% sure that we will if we increase the quantity of women in politics, that will going to work on the quality of the women also, because we need quality first than the quantity. At the same time, what women are doing, are they really putting forth the issues and challenges of their women, of the women society as a whole, women community as a whole? This is the question we need to work on it, and that I am trying to do in my research as well, ma'am. So thank you so much, and it has been a very interactive session with you both, and presided by Chatterjee ma'am. It was an amazing experience for all the IRSA members, the family of our IRSA family, and it's really great to have you here on this platform, and I'm looking forward to again get the opportunity to interact with you all, both of you. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Vikash sir, over to you.
Madam, Aisha, madam,
Yes, sir.
Aisha, yeah,
Hello.
please go.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes,
Good afternoon.
yes,
all
you
of
are
you.
audible.
First of all, yes, sir. Good afternoon to all of you. My name is
I'm
Aisha
sorry.
Zamir. Yes, ma'am.
I
Pauline.
have to leave soon. Just, I'm really, really sorry, but I have
Only
to go
one
to another
question.
meeting. Okay.
Only one question, madam. Only one question. Only one question.
Okay. My name is Aisha Zamir. I am a research scholar from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. First of all, I would like to congratulate Professor Birte ma'am, Professor Pauline ma'am for your great book. And thank you so much. You all are provided us very valuable views on this book. And thank you IRSA for this book discussions. Ma'am, I am not taking you so much time. Just a simple question that what should be our main focus when we use the transnational approach in our research in the field of gender equality? Okay, Professor Pauline, ma'am, can you answer this?
What the, you?
What should
What was it about transnational dimension of this that you would like to learn more about?
when we use in the gender equality, no, in the area of gender equality or citizenship, sir?
I'm not really sure I understand the question. Birte, do you? Can you take this?
I mean, it had. Thank you very much for the question. It's a very general question. I think what we mentioned about migration, the migration issue is one example of the transnational, because it's going across borders. I mean, what we discussed about citizenship rights for one group of national citizens. I mean, if you only concentrate on all the differences among women and men within the nation state, you know, you kind of you're limited in your interest, because I mean, at the moment, what we see is that all over the world, the migrant question is gaining more and more importance, because there's a lack of labor power in countries, or it's some aspects of labor that the national citizens do not do. In typical, as I mentioned, that some of my colleagues have been looking at farming in agriculture. You see women are coming more and more across the borders, or in Italy, for taking care of the children. If they are not public childcare institutions, they have women coming from Eastern Europe or other parts to take care of the Italian children. And then they don't have any rights as national citizens. So I think the migration issue that was mentioned before is one tiny example of something you can do as an
याद है कि तुमका कल पेपर है, जल्दी से 15 मिनट में रख दो, इसे रिवाइज करने बैठ जाओ। इधर तो तुमने खाना नहीं खाया?
हेलो रिफा रिफा
छोड़ो, तुम बहुत समझते देख रही हो, तुम जल्दी छोड़ो।
Oh, okay. I mean, I'll just briefly mention the other example, and then I think we're almost done. But of course, the global. I mean, now this was a case. This was a case story about migration. The global issue that you also, that Aisha, it's about the UN, the general rules on the global level. This is a transnational. I mean, there are negotiations of human rights as women's rights. So, and this is the other very important question, but how to implement the human rights and women's rights as human rights, this is still a big challenge. Okay,
and that's it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
That is the same with refugee issues. That also the discussions also are about the implementation of the Geneva Convention, which is about refugee status and what rights people have to come to another country and be welcomed instead of rejected. And in these days, in this day and age, that is a very important issue as well. So that is also an example of when transnational issues become related to gender and citizenship, because a lot of refugees are women, and there are a lot of issues related to family reunification and things like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for addressing all the questions from our participants. So moving on now, I would like to invite Mr. Ashwani Kumar for the vote of thanks. Over to you, Ashwani Kumar.
Okay, I really have to leave though, because I have another meeting and it's 20 minutes over time. I'm really, really sorry.
Okay.
We are just ending the session, ma'am. It's just a vote of thanks we are left with. So, yeah. We are going to end it, yeah. Exactly. It's a vote of thanks.
Because it's been so good
Ashwani
talking
Kumar.
to you, and I would really like to continue, but I am a bit pressed in time. I'm really sorry.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. Thank you very much for your time. But this is just the end of the session. We are just going to close the session. So, Mr. Ashwani Kumar, please over to you for the vote of thanks. Are you there? Mr. Ashwani Kumar, are you there? Mr. Vikash, I would like to request you to give the vote of thanks and conclude the session for the day.
Okay. Thank you.
Because
Thank you so much.
we are running out of time and delegates have to leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Within
Excuse me, Vikash sir, sorry. I would like to add on few points. Shall I? Vikash sir?
Yeah, Sunita ji, please. Yeah.
Ashwani Ashwani is here. Yeah.
Vikash sir, shall I add a few points, sir? I would like to add on if the permission given by Birte ma'am and Pauline ma'am. Shall I?
Within 1 minute, madam. Within 1 minute.
Hello, am I audible?
Sunita ji, you are audible, please. Yes.
Manorma ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. You are audible, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Pauline ma'am and Birte ma'am, I would like to add on some points into this. Like Debi, Chatterjee ma'am have nicely added. As we all are aware, as we all know that very nicely said by Jawaharlal Nehru, that he said that a country only progress when there is empowering of women can have a positive impact on a family, communities and the nation. And accordingly, he added few more into that if she is the one of move, the family moves, the village moves and the nation moves. So ma'am, the Debi ma'am has nicely lighted a point on women's having a different country, having a different perception, having a different class, upper class, lower class, accordingly they used to proceed. Women, it is not a homogeneous. This point have touched my heart. Very nicely ma'am have explained this one. And furthermore, the explanation given by ma'am based on the gender and equality, it is of what that ma'am said very nicely. We were having a different category of women. It is of not caste based, it is of lower different regions, different state, different caste. There is the problem of equality as well. Ma'am have lighted a point on called as the unexpected decline in a population. It is bad for the economic, but yes, it is we can say that good for the environmental sustainability.
So here it is of what that I heard from this session, and I am very happy that I am who's eagerly waiting for this book. If I may get at this book as soon as possible,